Helpful Village release webinar today. We will be sharing some news with you, number of reminders and resources we make available, the release improvements, what has changed on the software this month, a little demo. And we have Carly that will be doing a kind of a session on reports training. So an overview of some reports, some of them that existed before, but basically providing some training specifically about reports. So that's happening today, and a little discussion about the next priorities, what we will be working next month. Okay, first slide. We're gonna start pretty quick with, we said news, but it's actually kind of food for thought also at the same time. So I received this email. It's kind of a very Utah email. It's the Commission on Aging for Salt Lake City, where we are. And but it's a message that I think is kind of more general to what can be happening in other areas of the country. So basically what's happening here is that there is a budget cuts, in particular for the area agencies on aging and the aging departments. Obviously here in Salt Lake, we had a phone call with them. All the senior centers are closed. And not only they're closed, but obviously, because senior center buildings are places for socialization of older adults that are high risk for coronavirus, they will not be opening in a long time. And maybe there is a connection here between these budget cuts and the fact that these buildings are not operating. So this is something that is happening now in Salt Lake City. It's happening in other places of the country. So we had also another phone call this week. So this is California that had kind of a similar budget cut. And basically here in particular, there is a discussion. Basically, this Avenida is asking people to, basically contact the legislator so that, basically this Rose Kleiner Center on these other buildings stay open for older adults in their community. But basically wanted to bring this to your attention, saying that kind of senior centers and community buildings for older adults are in kind of, targeted by budget cuts at this point. And this can be interesting. We also, in our discussion with Avenida, saw that the highlight, right? Obviously, kind of many of these buildings are now closed, but what Avenida's highlighted in their newsletter for the overall organization was the fact that their Avenida's Village, which is also, one of our friends and that are using Helpful Village, basically they are operating and offering at-home services and connection while the building is closed. So it's kind of interesting that obviously the buildings are closed, and therefore they need to have a kind of more online option, or basically an at-home option with villages. So basically the food for thought here would be that basically what we see happening, and this I wanted to bring that to the table for you all, is basically that people who can no longer go to the senior center, they still need social interaction and at-home services, and for that reason they need a village, which I don't think anyone on the call disagrees. But I just wanted to put it on the table because we would love to hear from you, what's happening in other areas of the country, if that sparks interest in kind of villages or collaboration between the local senior center and the village and stuff like that. So if you can inform us about that, by email or something, or next week or anytime, we are interested in learning more about how the situation is evolving there. So that was kind of more news, more kind of food for thought. So we would love to hear from you if you have anything to say about that. This is more about the reminders. So basically, these are a number of links where you can find, our customer support service, or how to find the improvement ideas, and also the training docs, videos, and slides. So this is a number of links. So we will publish this presentation on Slack later today, and you can click on any of these links to find these resources. Exactly about the other one of these resources, that we have another webinar next week on Wednesday. Every month we do a webinar with the Village to Village Network that they host, and it's basically a different format of a webinar where basically it's more questions and answers. So if you have villages that have general questions that are not of the topics that we discussed today on the webinar, we would suggest that you send those questions to support@helpfulvillage.com, or also to Joanne. We should add her email address also here if she's okay with this. But basically, both Joanne and us are kind of basically, actually, it's Joanne organizing the B2B webinar next week, but obviously we work together so that we can think about the answers to those questions, etc. Anyways, if any of your questions that could benefit other villages, please submit that to support@helpfulvillage.com, and we will coordinate with Joanne to answer all those questions next week. This is also about resources, just reminding everybody that there is a training documents library that we update every month, and here is the link where you can find it. We have a new training document that we added this month. It's basically, this Carly put together this document that you can find under training docs on the reports folder, which is basically an FAQ. So there were questions, Margie, you asked that before, about some questions you had sent us by email, and those were great questions that are interesting to everybody. So you can find those in the reports document. We will be discussing those today because there is a training session about that, but there is a training document that will be found on our documents library today too. Not only we have training documents, we also have training videos. There is a YouTube channel for Helpful Village where you can find all the webinar recordings and also the training videos that we do. And in particular, this month, we have added 3 new training videos. So this is basically Jake that recorded 3 great videos. The first one is how to create new web pages with 2 columns. So basically how to use a template with 2 columns that works well on the desktop computer, but also on mobile. So the kind of smart columns that come, adapt to your phone. And then there is also a way to create this 2-column template with kind of cloning page. So there are 2 different videos that explain how to do this with in 2 different ways. The third training video that is linked here is actually a great feature that Jake found on the website editor that is called Show Blocks, and that can help people, just build their website better. So it's I think it's a 2 or 3 minute training video, so it's very short. So we encourage people to go and have a look at those videos. This is a reminder, basically, about our process where we have 2 different channels when villages are contacting us. When it's a bug or a problem or a task that involves your village, then we invite you to send us an email to support@helpfulvillage.com, where basically essentially it comes into our ticket management system that we're overviewing basically with Jake and myself also. And there is a separate system where you can submit new ideas. It's not a bug, something that would be great to add to the platform. And in order to do that, you can click on that link, ask.helpfulvillage.com, and those items will get prioritized. Later today, I'll show you the status of that list. We have been working within Helpful Village to kind of give priorities and let you know what we're working on next month. So that will be discussed later today. And that takes us to the release notes. So we're done with the reminders and news. Here we come with the improvements that we have been working on this month, and that will be available on the server this week. First thing, and I'm super excited about this one, is that we introduced the impact reports last month. What we were doing last month is that the impact report was calculating kind of a 1-pager dashboard of the village activity, but it was taking some dates by default. So it was taking for the last 12 months. So as you can see on that on that print screen at the bottom, it was taken from May 2019 to April 2020 or something. So it was always 12 months. But we got feedback from villages that was very interesting. One obvious feedback was that for villages that were in operation for 6 months, it was a little bit not super smart to average over 12 months. So that was one feedback. And then we added this date range. So starting from this weekend, you can use the same impact report. And when you click on the impact report button, you will be able to choose the dates you want. And these dates, basically, if you want to do it for 6 months or if you want to do it for 1 month, you can. By the way, that's another thing that it could be interesting, is running the impact report every month and compare it over time. So yeah, that's something that I'm excited. But we're talking some more about reports later today. So I'll go in more detail about the impact report during our report training session later today. Okay, this one I need to talk about this one too. So this was something we have been working on this month, unexpectedly, because gave us more work than what we thought, is changes we did to editable pages. So let me give you some context. First of all, this all started because we introduced some feature that is this autosave feature on editable pages that was supposed to save every 5 minutes. And I thought it was innocuous, that there would be no side effects, but there was a bunch of side effects that we needed to fix this month, and they are listed on this list. First is that the save button, when you press on this, now we're starting on Sunday, when you press on the save button, it will show the resulting page. What was happening last month is that when you click on save, it was saving, but you would stay on the editing page, so you don't know if it saved correctly or not. So that is one fix we did. The other thing is that the same save button was creating problem when it was a new page, because it was not redirecting to the preview of the resulting page. Well, then if you clicked on that button several times, it was creating the new page several times that looked like clones. So that was annoying. So that has been fixed too. At the same time, we fixed another problem with the editor. When you were cloning a web page, the editor was not always showing up. So that was a problem, and that has been fixed. There is another thing basically that we did, is that overall there was this all created some sort of instability for the website editor buttons or stuff like that. So we have been working this month, and it will be more stable. So the editor should be working better, when we release this new version this month. There is one additional thing that is kind of it's not a bug, but it's just something that is weird, and I want to let you know about, is that this autosave feature, right? So this is when you're editing a web page and you don't click on the save button. Basically, every 5 minutes, we're gonna try save that page for you, so that if something happens or something, you have intermediary versions of your page. Now, I at first I didn't see how this could be a problem, but I found out a case where a village lost some of their work, and this is what happens. So imagine now that you open 2 tabs editing the same page, right? And you start working on one and adding content to that page, right? But then on the second page, you're not making any changes, right? But if you open 2 tabs, both tabs are gonna try to save. So if you start working on the tab number 1 and you add more content or images, etc., that content can be lost if you have a second tab that would do the autosave without those images. So basically, it's a problem I didn't imagine at first. I'm still thinking to find a way to go around it, but essentially, in the meantime, just make sure you don't have 2 tabs open of the same page, because they can save over the other one. I hope this is clear. Yeah.
Manuel, this is Margie. Can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
To me, it makes absolute sense why that would be true, because it must be working on 2 local copies of the page.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise, it would have lost the original page, which means you can't cancel. Mm-hmm. So the two pages aren't interacting. It's as if they're 2 different pages.
There are 2 different pages, and each one of those pages is sending a save instruction every 5 minutes. So probably the second tab was started a little bit later, and it has no content, so it deletes the first one.
Right.
So it's annoying. I mean, I can see the logic why it does it, right? It's not even a bug. It's just, well, this page is supposed to autosave. It's autosaving. It's just, obviously, it's not the intended result. I never thought that kind of having 2 tabs open would create this problem. And we had a village that lost some content because they were working on a page, right? But they had this other tab open, and then it autosaved without that. So what I'm trying to think is kind of have some sort of toggle for next month where basically you can activate the autosave or not, right? I mean, if you're gonna work on a page, you could activate or something. I don't know. It's just something weird. What we're recommending villages at this time is that be careful. Don't leave the the editing web page open, because that's gonna be autosaving. And if you have 2 tabs open, well, that's a bad idea. Never have 2 tabs open when you're editing the same page.
I'm sorry. I always have 2 tabs open because I have to be able to see how the edit looks ultimately.
Yeah, but you have 2 tabs open. One of them is the edit page, and the other one is the view page. Is that right? Yeah, so you can have two tabs open if they are different. You know what I mean? What is a problem if you have two tabs open with two editors open? Because then they are both trying to save the information, and obviously one of them will create problems. So yeah, you can have many tabs. I always have a ton of tabs open, but please, yeah, it's not a good idea to have two tabs open with the editor of the same page. That was the kind of the message. Okay, so that's for the editable pages. So sorry for that, it was unexpected. I mean, when we coded that, it seemed easy and we didn't see any side effects. And we realized there was some things we didn't anticipate. Okay, let's move on to the next feature. So this is a new link that exists now on the volunteer profile of a person. So sometimes, you have a person and you go to the volunteer tab and creates a person, but it's a person that, it was accidentally should not have, this person didn't want to become a volunteer, and you just want to undo that thing. You want to delete the volunteer profile. So before you had to contact us and we would do something on the database. Now you can do it yourself. There is a delete volunteer profile link. It's not a big button because we don't want to make it too obvious for people to delete it. But it's there. And that link will only work if there is no volunteer information associated with it. What I mean is that if you have a volunteer that has been doing service requests or has been entering hours for, village builder things, well, that button we will not allow you to delete the volunteer profile because that would, you would lose some data. But if you did it accidentally, was this person that you added as a volunteer, but you immediately realize, oh, no, what did I do? This person wants to become a member and not a volunteer, then you can still go there and delete it. So that's new. Okay, this is another improvement we did this month. So basically, this is the service evaluations, right? So as you know, when a service request is completed, at the end of the day, the volunteer receives an email where they are invited to say, how did things go? It was everything went great, or there was a minor problem, or there was a problem. So before when they receive the email, they click on the button, they are redirected to the website where there is this form. This form is showing the member, the volunteer, and etc. What is new this month is that we are adding not only the service, but also the purpose of that service request. So what happened before is that, you could do, well, you have here was showing two writes or drive service requests. You didn't know which one was for it. And now we'll be showing a little bit more information. So you will know, well, these are right for the doctor and the other one was a right for grocery shopping or something. So we're just adding more information to the evaluation form. We added also, there is a service requests report, CSV report you can generate. And basically this month we added the reported mileage by the volunteer. So when the volunteer goes in on a transportation request, they can enter how many miles it took them and self-report that. And now that appears on the CSV report. Okay, so this is an improvement for the email templates. So as you know, you can prepare email templates with language for renewals or welcoming a new member, etc. And we did an improvement here following a suggestion from a village that the phone numbers were displaying kind of only the numbers and not with a beautiful format or hyphens and stuff like that. So now by default, we're offering this phone number formatting in these email templates. So they look prettier. Okay. So we need to talk about deceased people. So if you remember last month, we added a new improvement is that all users can now be marked as deceased. In the past, only for members, it was possible on the membership status, you could say if a member, had deceased. But we realized that sometimes, other people die too. Sometimes it happens that volunteers deceased and you don't want to contact them or stuff like that. So we have also a field that is deceased on the general tab of a person. And you can check that box so that, basically, who's no longer alive. But last month, we did not kind of synchronize the fact that, the membership status was set to deceased with the general tab. Now what we have included this month is that overnight, we're going to check all the members whose membership status is set to deceased, and we will check this box on the general tab automatically for you. So last month you had to do it manually. Next month it's going to be done automatically for you, so that we make sure that this checkbox is checked.
But Manuel, I never saw that checkbox.
Okay, it's actually we can go there. So this is demo site. You can see my screen, obviously. And then here, this is the general tab, right? Yep. And I have my member information, or what I was saying is that you can change the status to deceased here.
Don't do that.
So this is something that people were already doing. But the new thing is here in general, you have name, phone number, etc. And here under more, it's a little hidden.
Got
it. Some of the additional fields. You have bio, salutation, mailing name, race, ethnicity, gender, and then the deceased is down here.
Okay, got it.
We have an improvement. Actually, it's Jim from Taos suggested. We have not done it yet, but it's gonna come up next week. Not next week, next month. Is that what we want to do next month is that if someone is set as deceased, that we automatically remove them from MailChimp. Like, it's the kind of thing that we want to do, so that it's not on this month's release, but it's just to let you know that we're working around ideas to have this management a little smarter. Thank you for the question, Maggie. Let's go back to the presentation. Okay, this is another improvement we did. So this is a service request CSV report, where basically you have a spreadsheet file, and basically there is the duration of the request, one of the columns. What we were doing before is that we were listing them in minutes. So here you would see 60 minutes, but sometimes 90 minutes, sometimes 125 minutes. The reason for that is that, on a spreadsheet file, I thought it was easier to add those times, just summing, the minutes, but it didn't look very good. And basically now we're displaying it in hours. So it's just easier to read. It says, well, this service request, lasted for an hour, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, etc. So just easier to read. And I think spreadsheet files are now smart enough so that you can add the hours too. So it's just a report that will be looking better. Talking about reports that look better, this is another improvement we did. Actually, it's a suggestion by British Network of Petaluma. Is now we're adding the village logo that you have on your website. We're adding it to your PDF reports, right? So one example is the member directory. The header looks like this, kind of the name of the report and for which village. And now to the right, we can display the logo that you have uploaded to your website. So that's the case for member directory, but also for other reports. Okay, now we're moving to events. So we added now the possibility to customize the confirmation email for events. It says confirmation and reminder emails. I don't think the reminder has it, but I think confirmation in any case it does. So basically, if you start editing one of your events, right, you know that you can set up the Zoom link for your events. And now we added an additional field that is called instructions. It's something that you want to communicate the person that is registering for the event. So basically, when they register for the event, they will receive an email, and the email will show like this, like the name of the registered person, some comments, and the organizer notes is the same instructions that you have here. So basically, Jake, in this example, he set up meeting ID, password, phone number, and that translates into the email into this. If you want to communicate other things like about, please, some instruction for that event, how that, something that people need to bring, or something that people need to know when registered for that event, is instruction for each particular event will be included in the confirmation email. Okay. Okay, so that is another fix that we did, is that is a join online meeting now button, right? So you can set up on a Zoom meeting, or actually any online meeting link to your event. And if it's on the event, then we will add a button to the email, to the confirmation email, also to the reminder email, allowing people that are registered to join the online meeting now. Now, this button only shows in some cases. We're not kind of, just to protect the meeting, we are not sending it out if we don't know the person that registered for that event. But if they're an active member or if they're an active volunteer, or the third case, which is this fix, is saying if the person was registered by an administrator, well, then we will include the join online meeting button on the email, on the confirmation email, also on the reminder email. So that includes the admins. Actually, the way we knew about this, that we had an admin that registered for the event. So the admin was not not a member, was not a volunteer. So he did not have the join online meeting button. But because he was registered by himself, who's an admin, the button should have been there. So it's now there.
I'm sorry, Manuel, this is Margie. Can you go back a slide? It's not the admins that register for the event get the emails. It's the people who the admin registers.
Exactly.
Is that correct?
Yes, thank you. You said it much better.
So admins, when they register people for events, the links and stuff will now be included in the email to the people who registered.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Margie. You said it way better than I did. Basically, the reason is that we want to include the Zoom meeting or the online meeting link to people that are trusted. Obviously, active members and active volunteers are trusted. The people that are registered by an admin, we consider that the admin knows this person. There was a personal connection there. So we consider it safe to send them the link. Okay, that's another checkbox we added. It's kind of a little sad, but it makes sense. This is for events, right? So events have different options when you're editing an event. You can send reminders, you can accept donations for an event, you can enable or disable comments. We added a new checkbox this month, is to know if the event was canceled. Obviously with coronavirus and so many things going on, suddenly there's more canceled events. So we added another checkbox, and this checkbox is included in the reports. So this field is being used more for reporting purposes, right? Because it would still allow people to log in to, register for the event or see the event on the calendar, and we're not changing the display on the calendar, but it just will show up in the report. What villages were doing before this is that they were changing the name of the event, which is a good idea, and I still recommend that. Is that on the name of the event, please continue going there and say, well, this event was canceled, so that people can see it when they see it on the list. And then you can change the registration options. That you still need to do it manually, right? If you don't want people to register for that event because it's canceled, you should go see the options of that event and set it up to no registration or something. So this checkbox is not doing anything super smart other than including it in the spreadsheet file so that you can calculate and have statistics of what events are canceled. Okay, this is a little different. This is also for events. It's another checkbox that we added. It's not, this is about the visibility of the event on the calendar. So you can check if the event is visible or not visible. This will be, it's not only to members, it's actually to anybody. If it's open to all, they would still see it. This checkbox will be useful when you want to, as a village coordinator, keep track of some events, but you don't want to have them set up on, visible on the calendar, but you still want to, as an admin, see it, or also register people, like a board meeting or stuff like that. Me personally, I like kind of even when the board meetings are on the public calendar because, it shows activity of the village. But if you have some events that you don't want people to see, but you still want to have on your calendar and have participants to it, you can now manage that with the visibility checkbox. Okay, this is not events. This is more now on the user profile.
Manuel, can I ask a question before
Absolutely.
You move away from events? This is
Sure.
Carol at River City. So by having the links available only to trusted people, does that mean that if an event is open to the public, a non-member can register for the event, but they won't get the link unless the admin creates it?
Yeah, let me see. So yeah, so there are two things. First is you can choose who can attend that event, right? It's like the who can participate in that event, and you choose if that's members only or volunteers only or stuff like that. So that's one thing, and people can register for those events, yes or no. Now, for each event, you can define an online meeting link that can be Zoom or Google Hangout or anything like that, or Skype. And that works separate of who can register. Basically, the thing is that who can see this join online meeting link, right? And basically we will send it in the confirmation email only under 3 conditions. One is if the person is an active member, if the person is an active volunteer, or if the person was registered by an admin. So basically say that someone sent you an email, right? Saying, I want to attend or something. And then you can go in there and add this person to the participants list. And because you added as an admin and you have rights, basically we consider that this person is safe and we can send the online meeting link.
If we have an event that's open to the public.
Yeah.
And someone in the public that's not a member or volunteer wants to register for that. Are they able to do that without the admin knowing?
Yeah, exactly. So if they register online themselves and they are, totally okay to register, they will receive the confirmation email, but the link to the meeting will not be automatically included. So you would still need to send him, manually or somewhere else.
Okay, so how would I know who I need to send the links to? Do I get kind of a list?
Yeah, well, you can always go to the participants list for sure.
Okay.
And then in the participants list, you can print it as a CSV, and then you would need to see, well, who of those are active members or active volunteers. Okay. Yeah, it's a headache, this thing, because just to remind you, the problem with the meeting link, right, is that there were some attacks on Zoom, like people, it's called Zoom bombing, which is kind of people were showing up for events because they found the link on online. And we want to avoid is that, if potentially there was a hacker on the internet that was registering online for an event, and then automatically we don't know who this person is, and they got the Zoom meeting link and they can join the event and do something, it's not super fun.
I have a question. For villages that haven't exactly launched yet, we sort of want to have this could be an attractor to continue to get leads. Yeah. Is there a way to switch it as like a lead collector for Zoom meeting? Yeah,
it's kind of, the interesting thing now, it's absolutely. So there is something that is interesting here is first, it's kind of, we consider security. We consider security from Helpful Village, right? So we have a tough time saying, well, publish this online meeting link to everybody. That's kind of, but I understand your point also, that where sometimes it makes it easier for people to attend if you think it's safe enough for the participants you got or something. Something that is interesting is that, something you can start doing from this month is that you have the instructions here, right? So you could potentially share the link on those instructions, and those instructions go to everyone that registers.
Yeah, that would work. We haven't registered anybody for meetings yet because we're still trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
But when somebody registers online, do we get an email to tell us that happened?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So if I get an email that says this person registered, but they're not a member, then I could.
Yes. And then you could go in and send the online meeting link.
Great. Thank you.
Now,
Manuel, this is Margie. Sorry, can you tell us really quickly, what are your default settings in Zoom? For example, is ability to rename, is that enabled or disabled? Do you put people in the waiting room? Because we as participants don't have any control over this, only you do. So do you put people in the waiting room? And stuff like that. So how when we set up an event, how do we get to let people out of the waiting room if you're the host?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's all about security. So there are security options in Zoom, right?
There are a million security. There are 50, 75 of them.
Exactly. And this is what's hard about it, is that sometimes, there's this balance between security and ease of use, right? So the way Zoom started is like, oh, you got the link, you can get in. And what happens that some people got in and started doing kind of, what they should not be doing. So that's why we were not sharing the meeting link too far. But you can use some security measures. One of them is this waiting room, where basically anyone that has the link, before they join the general meeting, they are put in a waiting list, where basically an admin can go then say, well, yes, we let this person in because we know this person, or we don't let this person in. And there's another thing that is called locking the participants, which is basically, well, once all your participants are in, you don't allow anybody else come in. So you can activate all these settings in Zoom or any other software you're using. So that adds additional security. In our case, I also wanted to say that even though this instructions field allows you to share this information kind of about the meeting link and stuff like that, I mean, it can be a bad idea. There is some risk involved, and it can only be done if you're taking other security measures like this waiting room, etc. I hope everyone understands the risk. Now, the risk is just, it's just.
But how are you sharing, or you're not? I mean, can somebody be a co-host? In other words, it's our meeting, but since you set up the Zoom, you're the host. How does that work?
I'm not, in this case, I'm not the host. For your meetings, let me show. Let me go back to the event. So let's go back to demo. If you take one of your events in your calendar, and you take this one, for example, basically when you edit this event, you can go down here. And one of the fields here is called an online meeting link, right? So basically your village, if you set up for some village software or something, you would copy paste here the Zoom link that works for your village.
I see. You're not running the Zoom. We are.
No, I'm not running the Zoom. I'm just managing the Zoom link or the online meeting link, making it available to people that are authorized.
I misunderstood.
Yeah,
I misunderstood.
It's a very good question, because unfortunately, we need to take a lot of measures about when we include it, when we don't include it, because it's, there is some security concerns involved. So it's good that we could spend time, clarifying that. Does anyone else have questions about the Zoom meeting link? Oh, then you can speak up. So Jake is going to read one from the chat. You have it?
It was pretty much the same thing. Sarah from Next Village in San Francisco is asking about a workaround to get the Zoom meeting link to people that aren't in the system.
Yeah, so basically this I think we answered already here with the instructions field. If you feel it's safe enough to send it to everyone that registers, you can add it there. But you also, I mean, you know the risk of, well, if you share with anyone that registers and you have someone anonymously that registers and gets the link, he will get it. He will be able to get in the meeting room. So each village needs to consider if they want to share it there in the instructions or not. What I prefer, right, because we always prefer kind of the most secure way, is that you have people registering for the events, members and volunteers, and then actually go to the website. And when they go to the website and they see the event page, that they click on join the online meeting. So because they are logged in, we know who they are, and then they can join the online meeting from there. Phew. Security. Okay, let's move on. Join online meeting, we discussed this one already. The is cancelled, we discussed. The event visible, we discussed already. Okay, this one, it was on the user's profile, right? So this is when you're looking at the person profile, a member profile or something, we just reorder the fields. Now the bio is shown on top because kind of something that's more personal about the member, and a member can look at another member's bio if they click on the members directory. The members can see their bio, obviously, on their profile. And this is more of, I think that's my last improvement of the month.
Manuel, this is Carol again.
Yeah. Yes.
How can we see the volunteer's bio?
Yeah, we don't at this point. It's a
But
kind of a
they make-
member only.
They make them. I know there's a place for volunteers to add a bio, but there's no place to see it.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's no, it's not visible yet. Maybe we should add. At one point, is kind of the rationale there was saying, well, obviously there are kind of additional benefits of becoming a member, right? And one of them is that you can share your bio with other people, and the people can see it through the member directory, right? At this point, we don't have a volunteer directory. We only have a member directory. So only members can have bios that are seen by other people.
It would be, I think, nice for members to be able to look about their volunteers that are coming to provide.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So we take that idea. We're gonna think how we can do that. But it's definitely. I mean, we have heard from villages and how people are reacting to adding their bio, and I think it's a great service for members. Kind of, they really enjoy it. Connecting to the website and letting people know about themselves, about their bio, what they did in their personal or professional life to introduce themselves to other people. So we really like that feature, and we can open that up a little further to volunteers. So that makes sense. Okay, I want to finish this this improvement list. This is the last one no, I think there's one more, but basically this other improvement is the providers list, right? So each village can set up a list of providers that are, reviewed, recommended by the village or by members of the village, and they come in different categories, right? So home maintenance, housing, etc. You can manage these categories and subcategories. The improvement with it this month is that before it was looking like you can see on the left. So basically we have these provider subcategories like appliance repair, carpet cleaning, on kind of some sort of cloud display, which is kind of, they see in this weird order. And now what we're doing this month is that we're doing that in a little bit more organized or cleaner list. So it's the same list we had before, but just showing it in 3 columns on that page. So you see, before it was a little bit more confusing, going left and right depending on the length of the words. And now we just have a better alignment of those lines. And this is the last one, I think, of this month. Is now when you're creating an event, you have the possibility to add the speaker of the event. So we used to have organizer for an event, and now we also have the speaker for an event. So you can search the database for people that are in the database and set them up as a speaker. And this information will be shown on the the reports of the village in the CSV reports. That's it. So that was for the improvements of the month. I want to have just a check on what time it is. Ooh, so time is running. So we have a report training, and for the report training, we're going to be a little bit short on time. I'll start it right away, and then I think Carly can continue from there. So first thing I wanted to, so I'll be discussing the impact report. As we said before, we have this date range that you can manage. And I wanted to give some additional explanation about some items of the report that we have received questions about. One of the questions is about the social connections. What does it mean? And the other one was the community hours. Where do they come? So if we start with social connections, no, if we start with community hours, first of all, so that's actually the number of hours that have been reported in the Village Builder reporting hours. So under volunteers, there is a reporting hours field where people that do work for the village enter their hours. We're not counting the service request hours when a volunteer helps a member at this time. It's only, the hours that are done on projects for the village through the reporting hours. We could change that in the future, include other hours, but at this time, this is what we have. By the way, there was a bug in there because we were displaying community hours in minutes, so that the 45,000, it was a little bit too high. So in this new version, we just realized that, and it's coming down with a number of hours. The second question is the social connections, right? How do we calculate that? And I'm gonna show you that, but I'm gonna show you here on the impact report itself. So this is an example of the impact report for my village. And as you can see here, it's for now a number of months. So I did it from January to May. and it's saying that there was 0.1 social connections. So where is this number coming from? This number is coming from here. Actually, is what we're doing is that we're doing the event participations. Actually, let's have them here. The events attendance, right? So what you can see here is like we have 17 events and then 10 people that were present at those events. So we're gonna take this number 10, and we're gonna do a. So this is a social connection is when a person attends an event, and also when there is a service that is being provided, we're counting that as 2 social connections, because there is the member that is connecting with a volunteer, but it's also the volunteer that is connecting with the member, right? So basically the number to calculate this is basically 10 plus 8 times 2. So it's 16 plus 10 is 26. And then we average that over the total number of members of the village. So if you do 26 divided by 219 members, something like that, is how you get to this number. So basically social connection, the way to think about it is how many times a member had a chance to meet in person with another person, right? And they had a chance when they go to an event is 1 social connection. And when they receive a service request, well, that counts as 2 for the village, which is, 1 social connection for the member, 1 social connection for the volunteer.
Manuel, this is Carol again. Yeah. When it says event attendance, is that an average?
No, that's the total of events attendance.
So there were 17 events, and out of 17 events, only 10 people attended?
It's a great question. The thing is, I love that question, Carol. So this is a demo site, right? So, so data is not very relevant. Now, but what's interesting is that on demo, we have 17 events. And then when people register for an event, we're counting the people who are present at that event. When people register for an event, the status is set to accept. But then we need to change that status to present at the meeting. Let me show you that. If we go to the same event, if you go to the attendance list, and you see that here Jake registered for this event. You see, and the status is accepted. Accepted means that he's planning to come, but we don't know if this person came to the event or not, right? So the next step we do here is that we can go to edit, and this person set it to not only accepted, but actually is present at the event. So there is actually the people that showed up at the event.
So if on your report, you actually put it in the heading that what that number represents, I think it would be helpful.
Yeah. Okay, it's a good point. And basically here, now that we changed it from, accepted to people attending in real, so present, so this would go to 11 if we run the report again, right? Okay, there is another thing I wanted to explain about this in here.
Could I ask a quick question about that event?
Yes.
A little puzzle. Is that the average number of people who attended the event?
Yeah, no, it's the total. Yeah, it's the total. So let me expand on that, Joanne. So basically what we do here is that for this time range here, right? So from January, so beginning of January 2020 to the end of May 2020, this demo village, we have 17 events that have been organized. And then we have 10 people that were present at those events. Obviously, the numbers are not very exciting on our demo site, right? For your village, it would look much better. But if you had 1,000 tickets that basically for those events, here we show 1,000. So it's not the average, it's the total number of participants at those events that were present. So this is a total over this time period, right? In these 5 months, is the total of events that were organized, the total of event participants that were present, the total of services that were provided, completed, the number of check-ins that were performed in this time period, and the number of posts that have been posted on Village Talk in this time period. So all these are the total numbers. Here also is the total numbers. Community hours is adding the total number of hours that we're reporting in the hours thing. And
somewhere
now,
totals.
Huh?
Somewhere you might want to say totals or something.
Yeah.
Parentheses.
Yeah, it's interesting, definitely. I mean,
Manuel?
Yes.
It's Bonnie from Capital City Village. So the check-ins are not counted as a social engagement?
Wow, great question. I was thinking the same thing. It's like we need to count them. They are not at this point in this first version. We need to bring them there for sure.
That would be really big for us because
Oh, yeah.
the check-in system has been such a success.
Oh, that's great. No, and it makes so much sense. You know what, Bonnie? I'm gonna make sure I'm adding the check-ins to the social connection score before this weekend. So we'll have it for this month. It's not too hard. So it's a great point. It totally should be there.
So community hours are not service hours.
No, those are not service hours. Are those that are added through? Let me show you here on the website.
I understand.
Volunteers, we have reporting hours. You know, if here we're only counting those. We're not even counting those from the service requests.
Except those are office hours.
Yeah, those are office hours.
But the community is the wrong word then.
Okay, good point. So, so I had two things about that. You know, one is that, I mean, we thought these kind of office hours were still kind of community hours because it's something that people are doing for the community, kind of for the village. But now
it would make sense to me if you just use the same language you use on the website, Village Builder Hours.
Okay.
Those are not the same hours though.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
People are making great points. Those are great points. First is that definitely Village Builder hours kind of could make more sense. There are a few things here. First, I'm thinking maybe at this point, we're only including the reporting hours in this number, right? One part of the questions that are being asked is that maybe we should include there the hours that have been done responding to service requests, right? Those should be showing somewhere, right? And maybe either have another box in here or adding it here, but they are not being counted, and I believe they should. So that's one thing. Now, coming back to Kathy's question, right? Calling them Village Builder hours. Yeah, maybe it's a good idea here. Basically, the point why we didn't do it at first is that this impact report obviously can be useful for the board or internally at the village, but we wanted to use some language that was not very village specific, so that it would make it easy for you to go to see the mayor or the county or a local official or something, and you can give it to them saying, well, they can fully understand. They don't need to know any of the village lingo, right? Like Village Builder, what is this? And we tried to come up with some language that was kind of more generic, that would make it easier for some people that are not knowledgeable about the village. Now, by the way, I wanted to explain a difference between the different pages of the impact report, right? Which is very similar to what we were just saying. So the first page of the impact report is what we wanted to do for external communication. If you're giving that to your mayor or anyone external, you have this first page. And this one is very similar to that one, but this one is internal for the board. The difference between both is that here we're indicating all numbers, even if they are not looking very good. For example, here providers is 0, right? And we think it's meaningful for the board to know that, well, we don't have any providers in the database. It's something we could be improving. Or if you have very few posts that are being set because the village talk is not being used very much, but you still have the number internally, it's good to know, right? And things that you could potentially, improve or do more things about it. For example, the board also has information about donations and payments, and the fact that we have 0 newsletters. But on the first page that we intended it for maybe external communication, we have some minimum numbers, right? So we say, well, if you have very minimal event participants, we're not even showing it on the first page. If you have very minimal check-ins or very minimal posts, etc., we are not showing that on the first page. So just the explanation of why the first page is a little different is kind of the numbers that look good, and the page 2 and 3 are kind of all numbers on the dashboard for the board, so for internal use, and that includes the financials that we're not including in the external communication.
Manuel, how does somebody enter community their Village Builder hours?
Mm-hmm.
Like I spend a lot of time on the website.
You know what? It's a module that you can activate, and maybe not activated for all villages. It's if it's not available for some of the people in the meeting, you can let us know, and we can activate this additional link for you that allows people to enter hours that they have done for the village that were not connected with a service request, right? So, so basically, the village builder hours that you have been doing, after the fact.
Well, all the service coordinators and all the people.
Exactly. All people that are doing hours, right? They should be entering, because all those hours, the goal is that, and that's why I love the impact report so much, is that all that work that is being done by villages, people should know about that, right? The mayor should know about that. So if you start entering them in this hours module, they will be counting in the impact report, and will be, you will be able to go back and say, hey, we have put 2,000 hours of work with our volunteers to get this up and running. So definitely, we'll be happy, for villages that don't have it active under the volunteer tab, they don't have reporting hours, let us know, we can activate that module for you.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Now I need to tell you some bad news is that we had anticipated a report training, but we will not have time to do it today. So I know Carly was waiting, and she had prepared a number of slides here to give you additional information on reports. I think you had 40 slides. We will not be able to do it. So I'm sorry, Carly, first of all, because I took too long. And then for our village, is just letting you know that obviously this content will not be lost. We'll be running this training next month. Essentially, I'll try to speak a little less next time, and have Carly, take more time explaining some of the reports that are available. So if we skip that training session and Carly doesn't kill me, I still want to discuss one or two more things before we go.
Manuel, we're losing your audio.
Oh, really? Maybe my hand was standing on top of the mic. Is it better?
Yes.
I had my hand on the computer, so next to the mic, I guess. I was saying that we cannot do the training about reports that Carly had ready. So because the meeting is ending at this point, but we will do this training next month. So that you know that's coming up.
Sorry, but I see people in the chat are talking about it. I'm on the new report that we're making in the training docs. I'm going to put the same information from the slides.
Yeah.
So we can do that. And then if anyone wants to meet with me, I'm happy to talk to them about it too.
Yeah. I think it's still worth it, to do a kind of an online kind of training session, kind of at one of our webinars, maybe next month. But Carly, what you said is perfect also. So on our training docs, the same documentation is already made available. So people that want to start reviewing that ahead of time. But I still think we do, an online meeting about it to just basically provide training for people and answer questions about it. But not today.
It might be, Manuel, for next week's Village to Village meeting, that if people have a chance to review Carly's training docs, they can bring questions on that subject about the reports particularly. Maybe that could be a focus, because I think there would be a lot of interest in that. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do that. It's either absolutely. So it depends on the number of questions we receive, and then if we have enough time to do the training next week, we can do next week. It's a great point, Joanne.
Not the whole. I wasn't thinking maybe the whole training.
You said about the question for that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, if there are questions, if people review the bot.
Definitely.
But if there's enough questions about training, then about the reports, then that might be. I would not have a problem with focusing that meeting on reports.
Okay, definitely. If depends on the question we have for next week. If we have time to put it there, the training in there, we can do next week also. Anyways, we need to before we take care of next week, we should finish our meeting today. And for that, I wanted to show you one more thing, which is basically the current priorities that we'll be working on next month. So we discussed today what we are releasing to the server this weekend. But I want you to know what we're doing for next month. So these are the current priorities that are listed here. And actually, this is a print screen I did from the improvement ideas. So this file, right, with the improvement ideas that everyone can submit to ask.helpfulvillage.com is visible to all villages. So you can all go in there. It's here. If you want to know where it is, we'll post this document to Slack. And on Slack, you will see here on resources, if you click on improvement idea spreadsheet here, it will take you to this file where we have the list of all improvements that we're working on. And now, so this improvement ideas, they have kind of this color code where basically the green ones have been done or completed already. So you will see in the improvement ideas list that there is a number of things that have been done already. Some of them in this month's release. And then the other thing that is interesting is that these are the priorities here. So we have 3 columns here. One is customer success priority, and customer success priority, actually we have 2 people reviewing the different requests that we get. And then we discuss internally within the team, and then basically we come up with kind of some priorities for next month. So kind of basically this is kind of the customer success team that is reviewing priorities, and then this priority here is the main priority. Maybe I should call it main priority. But it's basically something that I have reviewed that I know that can be done technically, and this is what we anticipate to get done this upcoming month, right? Are the priority 1s. And we have a number of priority 2s, is what we think would come up later, right? So you can all go to see the improvement list thing. You can see what we thought was more priority at this time. But if you have feedback about, you know, if you say, well, you know, this task that is number something, you know, 45, you know, any number, etc. I think it should be prioritized for next month or something. Just let us know, and we see these priorities with villages, right? Now, I can go very quickly to show you what are the priorities we have now at priority 1, and it's this. So, you know, just something about the export files for the tags, so that can be easily manageable with a spreadsheet file. There are some reports that we're showing a timestamp, and we can change that formatting of the timestamp. I know this is one where basically documents library where you know, different reports are being created and put on the documents library, but you can start having too many, so we are making it easier to delete them with you know, bulk delete them with you know, a checklist or something. We are adding social member checkbox for the membership types. So this one is an interesting one where basically villages could have full membership and social membership. So we're going to include that on the membership type, and if people are on a social membership, they will not be able to create service requests. So they are able to participate in events and stuff like that. So we're going in that direction. Another one that is interesting is this one we got with coastal neighbors, where basically the village builder requests are things that are being done for the village, but we are adding an address to those requests. They're giving an example here in Dartmouth, but essentially is that, well, we are looking for volunteers that can help the village do something, but when they're helping, they need to come not to the village office, but they need to go to whatever place. You know, it can be, you know, I don't know, supermarket, you know, the town hall, or any other place. So we will add the possibility to add a destination address for village builder requests, if necessary. And the last one here is the possibility that we discussed this briefly before, is that deceased members, deceased people actually, that are, you know, using this is deceased checkbox, will make it sure that we unsubscribe these people from MailChimp, so that we're not sending, you know, emails or messages to people that are no longer in this world. So those are the priorities. So you can, you know, this document is visible. All villages can go in and review what we will be working on, the priorities we have discussed, what we have in priority number 1, what we have in priority number 2, and give us input. And, you know, this is basically how we are improving our improvement ideas management.
Excuse me.
Do you want us to send our feedback?
Yeah, I mean, you can. I mean, basically, yes.
No, where do you want us to send it? If we have comments about that,
yeah.
Do we send it to support? Do we send it to?
Yes. No, the best thing is send it to support. And basically what we, obviously kind of the priority, I mean, first, these improvement ideas is very open, right? Anyone that has an idea can go in and say, well, you know, it's like I had this crazy idea and it will go into the list. So we always need to go in and then have priorities of saying, well, this is kind of a crazy idea. It's kind of good to have, it's on the list, but we cannot do it for next month. It will have to wait because it's kind of a little bit kind of very creative. So we are constantly reviewing the list and say, oh, this is, I mean, someone came up with this idea. This is really important. it's kind of a combination sometimes of important and ease of use. Sometimes when there is something that is very easy, I would say, well, let's put it in priority 1 because even it's not too bad, it's something we can do quickly and get out of the way. So this is how basically we prioritize, how important it is, and sometimes also how easy it is. So now, this is how we have reviewed, and basically we come up with this priority, which is saying, oh, these are the next things we'll be working on next month. But now the list is much longer than this, right? There are many more items on here, etc. And basically, if you find one of the items that you think, well, this is really important, the number, I don't know, the number 45 is really important to our village. We want to know about that. So basically, he will change the priorities. He will bring that to my attention, and then we will raise the priority of that item, right? I mean, obviously, it's a hard task to make everyone happy about how the priorities are, but we're definitely taking input from villages about, where do you think we should be focusing our tech time?
This is Carolyn King. One quick question with your social member. If we've already created an associate member, do we have to do anything with language, or will it change anything that we already have if we've already created an associate member? Do we need to know anything?
Yeah. So what we will do is that. So this is not happening this week, right? It's something we'll be working technically will happen in July's release. That's first thing. What we're gonna do is that we're gonna add a checkbox on the membership type, right? That says for each membership type is either full or social membership. We'll start it by default to, for all existing memberships to full membership. So what you would need to do is that is go in and say, uncheck that box and say, well, that's a social membership, right? I mean, you would need to edit your existing membership types according to say that those are social memberships. So we always do these changes in Helpful Village where we try to be it doesn't have many implications what we do, but give you more power. If you uncheck that button, you will have the functionality so that they cannot create service requests. And then once that is available, obviously you can adapt your membership names as you want. So, but I don't want to talk too much about that because that's not even happening this month, right? It's happening the month after. So we'll have time at the next webinar a month from now to let you know what is the social membership change, how did it come up, and what do you need to do for your existing membership. It's a good question. It's just hard time. I don't want to confuse people with what's coming out this month or what's coming out the month after. Okay, so that's a good question. Does anyone else have other questions? We're a little bit past the hour, so I don't want to stay for too long. But if there are questions, that I can still answer. And maybe there are no more questions, and that would be great. And if there are no more questions immediately, it's not a big deal because there is another webinar next week on Wednesday. As we said before, if you have additional questions, we are happy to connect next month. And with Joanne, we are, managing this village-to-village network. People need to remember to register on the B2B website for that other webinar, and they will be sending the link for the Zoom meeting, which is a different Zoom meeting than the one we use. But anyways,
Manuel?
that being said.
Manuel?
Yes.
Sorry, I had trouble getting my unmute off. This is Sheila from St. James Ness. A lot of good things were brought up in the chats. Okay. Do those ever get answered anywhere so that we can see what the answers are?
Yeah. So Jake had an eye on the chat for the whole session, right? So essentially what we try to do is that when it's relative to what we're discussing, right, it's he can interrupt anytime and let me know what's going on in the chat. Most of the time, when there are questions on the chat that were not directly related to what we were discussing at that moment in time, we would like to take those questions to the Q&A webinar next week. So if you're planning to attend that one, we will go over the chat and extract the question from there and try to answer them all next week at the webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Okay, and then we were about to say goodbye. Unless someone has a last minute request, but other than that, we're gonna say bye-bye. Okay, bye-bye. See you, everybody.
Thank you.